Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Sammy Keyes and the Hotel Thief. This week we're going to read chapters 10 through 12. Chapter 10. Marissa's parents finally showed up around 8 o'clock. They put down their briefcases, gave me big smiles, and said, "Why, hello, Samantha. How are you?" I lied and told them I was just fine, and wondered if Mrs. Mackenzie would be mad if she knew I'd used their shower, eaten 2 of their lean cuisines, and was wearing her daughter's clothes. Mr. Mackenzie went straight to the phone to call in about stocks somewhere, I suppose. They're always on the phone, especially Mr. Mackenzie, either on the phone or at the computer. Mrs. Mackenzie says it's the only way to stay on top of the game. Marissa says they even take a phone to bed and set alarms during the night so that they can get up and check on overseas stocks, if you can believe that. Mrs. Mackenzie pours herself some bottled water and says, "Marissa, dear, your father and I are planning to go up to Big Falls this weekend. Can you think of anything you might need while we're gone?" "Can I come?" Mrs. Mackenzie flutters around a little. "Well, dear, you know how much your father and I need a break. I was hoping I could count on you to look after Michael." Marissa looks down. "Oh. How is Michael anyway?" "Well enough to go to school tomorrow." Mrs. Mackenzie smiles and says, "Excellent. Maybe I should go check on him." Then off she goes to check on the little faker. Marissa whispers, "Let's go up to my room, okay?" And you can tell something's bothering her. Marissa's room is more like a fancy hotel suite than a bedroom. She's got 2 beds, a window seat full of teddy bears, and her very own bathroom. Marissa's bathroom is always a mess. The sink has toothpaste in it, the floor is covered with dirty clothes, and there's not a glass figurine in sight. It's the best room in the house. The minute we close the door, Marissa flops down on the bed, hugs a pillow, and sighs. I flop down on the other bed and say, "What's the matter?" All of a sudden, Marissa's crying. "Why can't we go with them? We never get to go anywhere together. It's not like they're actually going to relax at the lake. They've got 2 phone lines and a computer up there. It's not like I'd be in the way or anything." So I say, but before I can get it out, Marissa lets out this scream. I jump up. "What? What?" She points to the ceiling, all bug-eyed, and whispered, "What is that?" I look at the ceiling, and what do I see? Nothing. "What's what?" She points again. "That!" I stand on her bed and take a close look at where she's pointing, and sure enough, there it is, the teeny tiniest spider on earth. I look at Marissa and laugh. "How did you even see it?" Well, she's not laughing, not one bit. "Is it a spider?" All of a sudden it drops and she screams and holds her face just like in an old black and white movie. I reach up and slap the spider between my hands, and when I open them up, there's barely even a smudge on my palm. I go rinse my hands off while Marissa tries to recover from the heart attack she gave herself. When I get back, she says, "They are so creepy." It was microscopic. She shivers. Ugh, little spiders grow into big spiders. She plops back down on the bed and sighs, and a second later, she's forgotten all about the spider. All I really want is for them to be home once in a while. I'm so tired of frozen dinners and Pop-Tarts. They always tell me I've got to be home for dinner, and then they don't show up until 8 o'clock or something. I can't believe how lucky you are. I shake a finger in my ear like I need my hearing checked. I mean, here she is in her very own bedroom with her very own bathroom on one of her 2 beds in a gigantic house she shares with both parents, calling me lucky. Marissa's never had to worry about which way to sneak into the house or how to pay for some little thing she decides she wants at the mall. Never. So I say, "Lucky? Me?" "Yeah, you. Your grandmother's always home. Anytime you want to see her, there she is, waiting for you. If I want to get a hold of my mother, I have to go through about 20 please holds before I can talk to her. And then she's usually in the middle of some deal and winds up telling me she'll see me when she gets home. Thanks a lot, Mom." "But Marissa, you do get to see them every day, and they're really nice to you. They give you anything you want." Marissa makes a face. "Yeah, here's some money, kid. Now leave me alone. I just hate it." "The money?" Yes, the money, the stupid money. She looked straight at me. You're the only friend I've got, the only one. You're the only one who's never asked me for money. You won't even take it when I try to give it to you. She whacks a pillow with both hands. Every time I think someone's being nice to me because they like me, what do? They ask to borrow money. It's always the money. Well, I think about this for a minute. I mean, even though Marissa has everything in the whole wide world, I'd never actually wanted to be her. We were quiet for a long time, just lying there on our beds. And I'm in the middle of wishing I could be at the senior high-rise sneaking past Mrs. Graybill so I could give Grams a hug and sleep on her couch when Marissa does something I've never heard her do before. She snores. I watch her for a while, lying there flat on her back with her mouth wide open, snoring. Then for some reason I think about a spider dropping from the ceiling right into her mouth and I bust up. Marissa doesn't wake up though. She just keeps right on snoring. So I chuckle about the spider some more and then get up to turn off the lights. And when I go back to bed, I stare out the window at the moon, wishing for morning, so I can get home and explain everything to Grams. Chapter 11. In the morning, Marissa offered me a ride on her handlebars, but I figured out a long time ago that Marissa Mackenzie is not someone you should accept a ride from. The one time I did, she about killed me, wobbling all over the place, telling me to duck so she could see where she was going, putting on the brakes so fast that I fell off and almost cracked my skull. No, it's much safer to walk, even with the world's biggest blister telling you to ride. So off she went, racing down East Jasmine, waving and wobbling, calling over her shoulder, "Wish I'd been suspended," and off I went, wishing I'd drained my blister. When I finally got home, I let myself in, and what I'm expecting to see is Grams on the couch reading the paper or doing a crossword puzzle or watching the morning news. But what do I see? Nobody. I call out, "Grams, I'm home." And what do I hear? Nothing. So I peek into her bedroom and say, "Grams," and then I check the bathroom. "Grams." Finally, it dawns on me, Grams is not home. Now, this had never happened before, and it struck me how quiet it was. And then I started to worry. I moved around the apartment from place to place, not really going anywhere. First, I sat on one side of the couch. Then I sat on the other. Then I moved across to a chair and just sat there with Dorito in my lap, staring off into space. I wondered where in the world Grams could be. I mean, what if something had happened to her? Maybe she was in the hospital. Maybe Mrs. Graybill had come after her with a curtain rod or something. Maybe she hadn't answered the phone when I'd called last night because she was in trouble. Then I had a terrible thought. Maybe the hotel thief had come back looking for me and wound up tying Grams up and stuffing her in the closet. Now, I tell myself that's stupid. It couldn't have happened. But the more I think about it, the more I can just see her tied up with duct tape, her glasses all crooked, shoved in the back of the closet. So I get up, and very slowly I move to Grams' closet. And I'm standing in front of it, feeling like I've got x-ray vision because I can just see her in there. And I take a deep breath, yank open the door, and there's nobody there. Well, I feel pretty stupid. And before you know it, I'm back in Grams' favorite chair, worrying. And when I'd had just about as much worrying as I could take, I got up and started vacuuming. I vacuumed the whole apartment, even the baseboards. All that noise helped me think. And what I decided was that if Grams was home in the morning, then she was probably all right. If she hadn't been home all night, then there really was something to worry about. I shut off the vacuum and headed for the kitchen. I checked out the sink, which was empty. Then I looked in the dishwasher. The bowl on the top rack had been rinsed, but when I looked at it real closely, I could see some oatmeal stuck to one side. I checked the glasses, and there was a spot of pink on the side of one of them, Grams' grapefruit juice. So I closed the dishwasher and went into the bathroom. Sure enough, Grams' toothbrush was wet. So was the bottom of the bar of soap. Well, I felt a lot better. Grams was fine, no doubt about it. And I was just about to leave the bathroom when I noticed something in the wastepaper basket. I bent down and picked it up, and sure enough, it was what I thought it was, tissue paper with lipstick dabbed on it. Now, I've only seen Grams wear lipstick for special occasions, so it was strange finding the shape of her lips on that piece of tissue paper. And I couldn't help thinking I missed something. I mean, what was the special occasion? Where had she gone? So I started sweeping up the kitchen, scrubbing down the sink, cleaning out Dorito's litter box, just keeping busy while I was trying to figure it out. But after all that cleaning, I still didn't have an answer. So I sat down and had a big glass of milk and waited. And waited. And waited some more. And pretty soon I'm sick to death of waiting, and I'm thinking about what in the world I can do. Going to the mall doesn't sound like any fun. The pup parlor would be all right, but I didn't really feel like it. Then I remember how I really should get some gum to replace the masking tape on the 4th floor, so I head to Maynard's. Nobody's in the market but TJ, and since he's on the phone with his back turned, I decide to check out the comic books. And I'm back by the magazines when I hear him say, "What do you mean the crop froze? How can the crop freeze? It's always 90 degrees in Florida." He listens for a second, then says, "Hugh, buddy, you told me it's a sure thing. Double your money overnight. That's what you said. I know there are risks. I know you can't guarantee, but you said it was a sure thing." No. You don't understand. I borrowed it from my old man. I've got to make it back by the end of the week or I'm out of a job, out of a home, out of... He listens for a long time, then shakes his head. "Man, you said that last week about coffee beans. You said that Friday about oranges. Now you're talking pork bellies? Give me a break." He listens for a long time. Finally, he sighs. "You better turn this thing around, Hugh." "Yeah, go ahead. I'm in for the pork bellies." He gets off the phone mumbling, "pork bellies," and then he notices me. "Hey, you're not supposed to read those here. You're supposed to buy them and read them at home." He goes to the freezer and takes out a double dynamo. "What are you doing here anyway? I thought school started yesterday." I check out the freezer, which is chock full of double dynamos, then count the money in my pocket. Not enough. I look at TJ chomping away on his and I say, "I got suspended." His eyebrows shot up. "Suspended? On the first day of school?" I pick out some gum and pop it on the counter. "That's right." He stares at me and I just stare back. Finally, he rings me up and says, "Get out of here, would you? I don't need juvenile delinquents hanging around my store." So I stand on the corner of Broadway and Main a while, watching cars do-si-do around each other, and all of a sudden I get a very bad idea. And the more I think about it, the more I talk myself into believing it's a good idea. And off I go down Main Street, straight to Madame Nashira's House of Astrology. I wasn't really expecting her to be there. I tried peeking around the old velvet curtains, but I couldn't see much, so finally I pushed on the door. A bell jingled as it opened, and a voice called, "Not open, sorry." I stood there blinking for a minute, trying to get used to the darkness. The walls and ceiling were painted black, and with little silver stars everywhere. There was an old velvet love seat, and in front of it was a coffee table with unlit candles and a big deck of cards. Across the room was an ancient-looking telescope on a brass stand, and sitting at a table next to it, punching numbers into a calculator, was Gina. The table had a thick green skirt around it, and behind it was a white curtain, coming down from the ceiling like a slice of the Milky Way. I watched her for a minute, and she went back and forth between a book and a calculator. Finally, I said, "Hi." Well, she about jumps into outer space, and when she comes back down, she's clutching her heart. "Don't do that to me. I was concentrating." "Sorry." She looks at me a little closer. "Oh, it's you. Hi. What are you doing out so late?" She gropes for her watch and curses. "What's the matter?" "That creep took my watch, too. Like he's going to be able to get anything for it. It's just silver plate, but I really liked it. It had moons on one side of the band and suns on the other, and it doesn't matter. It's gone." She eyes me. "The point is, what are you doing out so late? Does your mama know where you are?" I laugh. "It's 10 in the morning." "No kidding." I pull back the window curtain. "See?" She shields her eyes like I'm torturing her. "Put it down." I drop the curtain and laugh. Sorry, but why are you here? I don't know. I guess I was hoping that maybe they'd found out something more about the jerk who stole my money. No chance. Not with that buffoon in charge. She squints at me. Why are you so interested anyway? I just shrug and stand there in front of her desk, toeing the carpet with my high top. She studies me a minute. You're not just interested, you're worried. I keep digging at the carpet. No, yes, you are. What's the matter? You worried that maybe the guy saw you too? I look up at her. I know he did. Seriously? She gives me a doubtful look. How do you know that? I go back to destroying the carpet and mumble, because I waved at him. Her face twitches a minute and then she busts up. Oh, you're priceless. More like stupid. She laughs a little more, then makes herself stop. Look, honey, you've probably worried about nothing. Maybe he saw you, but he can't know who you are. It's too far away. I keep trying to tell myself that, but... So what you've got to do is get your mind off of it. Forget about him. Make yourself think about something else. She taps the paper on her desk. Ever had your birth chart done? I don't even know what a birth chart is. You don't? Well, sit down and let me show you. She's looking at me so excitedly, I can't say no. No thanks, I really shouldn't be here, any of those things. So I sit down right across the table from her. She shoves this drawing at me that looks like a cross between a clock and a wagon wheel. This is a birth chart. It plots out the exact position of the planets at the time of someone's birth. She points to the wedges. These are houses. That's the way we divide up the space surrounding Earth. There are 12 houses, and each one represents a sphere of human life. For instance, the first one is the house of Aries and Mars. It reveals personality and psychological motivation. Whereas, say, the sixth house, Virgo and Mercury, is related to health, diet, and exercise. Now, when Gina started talking about the birth chart, it's like she became a different person. She still looked like a gypsy who dunked her head in a bucket of shellac, but all of a sudden she sounded different. She sounded really smart. She sees me staring. Why are you looking at me like that? I blink. Sorry. Okay, like I was saying, these are the houses, and this, she points to the green line going through the middle of the chart, is the horizon. The horizon? Yeah, the horizon at the time of birth. You need to know that so you can position the cusp of the first house. That's called the ascendant. What? What's a cusp? She laughs. Here, this line is a cusp. It separates one astrological sign from another. The ascendant is the degree of the zodiac rising over the eastern horizon at the moment of birth. Each degree takes about 4 minutes to rise. Wait a minute. How do you know the moment of birth? You need a birth certificate. Gotta have it. You can't just guess, because even if you're only a few minutes off, by the time you're done making all the conversions into sidereal time, your whole chart will be off. Same with the place of birth. If the latitude and longitude are off, well, forget it. Seems pretty complicated to me. I look at her chart for a minute. So what do you do with it? I'm not anywhere near done yet. I've got to finish writing in the glyphs, draw in the midheaven, position the sun and the moon and the planets, then I've got to draw in the aspects, progress it, and interpret it. I shake my head. Wow. She studies me a minute. You're an Aries. It's not a question, but I nod anyway. She laughs. Who but an Aries would wave at a man stealing money? She collects her papers and says, what I know is, what else have you been through? What else have you seen through these binoculars? You see some kind of peeping Thomasina? I can feel my cheeks turning red. No, I just, well, sometimes I get bored. Gina nods like she understands. Ever try looking at the stars through binoculars? It's pretty cool. Really? They're so far away, I wouldn't think you could see them any better. She slides her papers into the drawer and straightens out the books. Try it sometime. You'll be surprised. She points to the telescope across the room. Last year, around Christmas, I hauled that thing to the roof of the mall. It was spectacular. My mouth drops open. The roof of the mall? How do you get up there? Haven't you ever gone behind one of those employees only doors? No. They'll take you straight to the roof. Gina laughs. And here, I thought you were an anarchist. She picks up her keys and says, bedtime for Madame Nashira. I watch her lock up and go, and the minute there's a break in traffic, I jaywalk across the street so I don't have to walk through the guys already hanging around the red coach. And before I even reach the far side of the street, I've got a whole new plan for how I'm going to spend my day. Chapter 12. Mrs. Graybill's nose wasn't in the hallway, and Graham's binoculars were under the bed, right where I'd left them. I cleaned the lenses, scrawled Graham's a note, then headed for the mall. When I got there, I tried to act real casual riding up the escalator, but since the only people at the mall in the middle of a school day are adults and babies, it felt like everyone was staring at me. Like any minute someone was going to come right out and say, "What are you doing here?" And hey, what's with those binoculars? The second I got to the top floor, I found an employees-only door and ducked behind it. I stood there a minute, just glad to be away from all those adults and babies and eyes staring at me. Then I started walking. I'd always thought there were just bathrooms behind those employees-only doors. I didn't know there was a whole maze of corridors. And I'm cruising along feeling like a hamster in a new cage when a door swings open and practically knocks me over. It's not an adult, and it's sure not a baby. It's Brandon. He flips back that shiny hair of his and says, "Sammy, sorry." I said, "What are you doing here?" Because everyone knows Brandon's supposed to be at school. "I had a dentist appointment. I just stopped by to pick up my paycheck." He looks me up and down. "I might ask you the same question." I blush and mumble, "I got suspended." "Suspended? You?" I check out my high tops, feeling pretty stupid. "Yeah, for punching someone in the nose." He laughs. "Well, I'm sure they deserved it." Can you believe that? I tell you, Brandon's all right. Anyhow, he looks at his watch and he says, "I've got to run. I'll talk to you later." I stop him. "Hey, Brandon, do you know how to get up to the roof?" "The roof? Why do you want to get to the roof?" "I don't know. I just do." He pulls on the back of his hair, studying me for a minute. Finally, he says, "Go down this way and turn left at the next T. It's the first door on the right." He turns to go, then he stops and says, "You didn't hear that from me, right?" I laugh. Right. I ran down the corridor and turned left, then opened the first door on the right. It led to some cement steps and up to another door. I went up the steps and through the door, and all of a sudden there I was on the roof of the mall. And it felt like I was on top of the world. I ran around a bit, peeking over the edge of the roof wall. Then I cut through a bunch of fans that looked like the top of some Saudi sheikh's palace and went over to the other side. I could see the tops of trees and power lines and the roofs of houses, and then people, lots of people, just kind of hurrying along the sidewalk. After I'd looked around with my eyes, I started using the binoculars. First, I checked out the Salvation Army. There are always people hanging around at the Salvation Army. They kind of spend the day sharing cigarettes and lying back on their sleeping bags, watching people go back and forth to the courthouse, waiting for someone to come out of the soup kitchen with some food. I spent a little while watching them watching people, and then I decided to watch the people they were watching, lawyers mostly. They were hanging around outside the courthouse, sharing cigarettes and talking, looking quite a lot like the people at the Salvation Army, only dressed up. It didn't take long to get tired of watching them, so I moved on over to the police station. The police station is right next to the fire station, so you'd think there'd be a lot going on, but there wasn't. I watched the front door of the police station for a long time, and it opened only once. Same at the fire station. I could see a couple of guys cleaning the fire trucks, but it all seemed like it was in slow motion. So I cruised along the wall for a while, watching some bulldozers level dirt for a new parking lot for the mall, and then I thought to look for William Rose Junior High School. Maybe I could even spot Heather Acosta picking her nose or something. I found the school all right, but all I could really see were the basketball hoops, so I gave up and went over to the other side of the roof. There were people sitting on the benches in the little grassy area around the mall, mostly in the shade because it was pretty hot out. There was a lady with her baby sitting under a tree playing peekaboo. There were a couple of guys drinking out of styrofoam cups playing checkers. There was a man in a three-piece suit and with his briefcase and perfect hair. I would have been sure he was a lawyer, except he was doing something you never catch lawyers doing. He was eating an ice cream cone, a double dynamo. Well, I looked down the street a little farther, and sure enough, there's Oscar, sitting on the planter by himself in the shade of a big tree, cleaning his glasses with a hanky, enjoying a rest from pushing the cart of his around. All of a sudden, I realized that the roof of the mall is the hottest place in town, and I'm dying for an ice cream, or at least a drink of water. So I start for the door, telling myself I'll come back when it isn't so hot, maybe at night, to check out the stars, when I get the idea to look for Hudson's house. So I run across to the far side of the roof, then find Hudson's house with just my eyeballs. I put the binoculars up, adjust the focus, and sure enough, there's Hudson, sitting on the porch, beating the heat with a tall glass of iced tea, laughing. And sitting right next to him, beating the heat with a tall glass of iced tea, laughing, is my grandmother. I feel like going down to Hudson's, but I didn't. I went home. And the longer I waited for Grams, the madder I got. What was she doing? Trying to teach me a lesson? What if I hadn't seen her through the binoculars? And why was she spending the whole day with someone she thought I spent too much time with? When she finally came through the door, she was hauling a bunch of plastic shopping bags, humming. She put them down on the kitchen counter and smiled at me. Did you have a nice day? I crossed my arms. I was suspended, remember? She starts taking cans out of a bag and putting them away. Oh, I remember all right. I watched her for a minute. This was just your idea of teaching me a lesson, wasn't it? She keeps humming away, putting up the groceries. Finally, she turns to me and says, I'm sorry, Samantha. Really, I didn't mean to be gone so long. I'm quiet for a while, then I heave a sigh. Worrying's the pits. Grams throws her head back and laughs. You can say that again. And she's on her way over to give me a hug when I say real quietly, at least when you worry about me, it's because of emergencies, not because I decide to spend the day sipping tea on someone's porch. That stops her cold. What? Have a nice time with Hudson today? She takes her glasses off and starts buffing them, holding them up to the light, then buffing them some more. I only went there because I thought it was high time I knew a little bit more about this man. Because of me? Yes, of course, because of you. So, I'm right, huh? I agree he's a very knowledgeable man, but frankly, I find him to be an insufferable flirt. An insufferable flirt? Hudson? She pops her glasses back on her nose. That's right. But if you think for 1 minute you could make me forget your recent behavior by talking about Mr. Graham, you are sorely mistaken. She points to the couch. Sit. Right now. Sit and talk. You've got a lot of explaining to do. So I sit and I talk, and I tell her right off that I didn't leave Mrs. Graybill that note, that I think somebody who knows I saw him steal something left it. Then I back up and tell her about the burglary at the Heavenly Hotel, and when it comes out that the binoculars were involved in the trouble I'm in, Grams is just dying to say I told you so, but she doesn't. She just sits there real quiet, looking paler and paler. And when she finally can't stand it anymore, she says, Why in heaven's name did you wave? I shrug. Grams, I don't know. I just did, okay? She looks at me through her glasses like Mikey looks at some new fish in an aquarium. And next, I suppose you're going to tell me you didn't call the police because you didn't want to worry me? My face crinkles up, part smile, part cringe. Then I add really fast, but I have talked to the police. There's this guy named Officer Borsch. I told him the whole story that night at the Heavenly Hotel, and... At the Heavenly Hotel? You mean to tell me you went inside? My face crinkles up again. Well, there were police cars parked out front, and I wanted to find out what was going on, so You are never to set foot in that hotel again. Do you hear me? Never. But Grams, it's not seedy. It's really kind of neat. It's got, I don't care what it's got. It is no place for a girl your age. Do you hear me? Just then the doorbell rings. Grams puts a finger to her lips, and I do a quick check for anything of mine lying around. Then I duck into the closet. 2 seconds later, Grams calls, "Who is it?" Normally I shut Graham's bedroom door when I dive into the closet, but this time I didn't. I just dived in, made myself some room in the middle of Graham's shoes, and got ready to wait for whoever rang the doorbell to go away. Then I heard something I couldn't believe. I opened the closet door just a crack, and sure enough, it was the voice of Officer Borsch. He was saying, "Yes, ma'am, I'm aware of that, but your neighbor insists that she's the one who left the note, and it's my duty to follow up. It is a threat, you know." Graham says, "Of course it's a threat. And if you'd catch that fella my granddaughter saw across the way, you'd have the person who left the note." "Ah, so you're the grandmother." It's dead quiet for a minute. Then he says, "And I suppose it's your granddaughter who told you that the note under your neighbor's door was left by the hotel thief?" "That's right, and—" He snorts. "With all due respect, ma'am, maybe this is just her way of getting some attention?" By now, I've pushed the closet door open a little bit more so I can hear better, and I'm dying to jump out and tell Officer Borsch a thing or two, but I can't. I have to wait and just sit there, getting madder and madder, listening to him make fun of me. Then all of a sudden, his voice starts to get louder, and I can hear him creaking and jingling my way. He says, "Would you mind if I took a look out the window? I'd like to see if it's even possible to see the hotel room from here." Now, I can tell that that's the last thing in the world Grams wants is for Officer Borsch to go nosing through her apartment, but what can she do? He's already nosing. His feet walk right past the closet, so I scrunch back as far as I can and hold my breath. I hear him mumble, "Mm-hmm," like he just doesn't believe it. Finally, he says, "Where's your granddaughter, ma'am?" "Home from school, I suppose." "Ah, yes. She does have a very nice home, doesn't she?" I can tell Grams doesn't quite know what to say to that. Yes, she does." "So why does she come here so much? Your neighbor seems to think this is her home." Uh-oh is what I'm thinking. Uh-oh. And I just know that Grams is out there sweating, but what she says is, "Oh, Daisy, she's lonesome," if you know what I mean. Officer Borsch is quiet for a minute. Finally, he says, "What's the name of the street your granddaughter lives on again?" Well, my heart's going full speed ahead. I can see the big lie just crumbling away in front of me. Then very quietly out of Graham's mouth comes, "East Jasmine." Let me tell you, I felt like whooping. There's nobody in this world like my grandmother. Nobody. And I'm sitting there with my hands and fists going, "Yes, yes, yes," as loud as my brain can shout, when something brushes across my shoulder. Not Graham's coat, not one of her dresses, something alive. That is the end of chapter 12. You'll have to come back next week for more of Sammy Keyes and the hotel thief to find out what Sammy has encountered.